The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John.
Glory to you, Lord.
Jesus went across the Sea of Galilee. A large crowd followed him because they saw the signs he was performing on the sick. Jesus went up on the mountain, and there he sat down with his disciples. The Jewish feast of Passover was near. When Jesus raised his eyes and saw that a large crowd was coming to him, he said to Philip, "Where can we buy enough food for them to eat?" He said this to test him because he himself knew what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 200 days' wages worth of food would not be enough for each of them to have a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, the brother of Simon Peter, said to him, "There is a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what good are these for so many?" Jesus said, "Have the people recline." Now there was a great deal of grass in that place, so the men reclined, about 5,000 in number. Then Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed them to those who were reclining, and also as much of the fish as they wanted. When they had had their fill, he said to his disciples, "Gather the fragments left over so that nothing will be wasted." So they collected them, and 12 wicker baskets with fragments from the 5 barley loaves that had been more than they could eat. When the people saw the sign he had done, they said, "This is truly the prophet, the one who is to come into the world." Since Jesus knew that they were going to come and carry him off to make him king, he withdrew again to the mountain alone. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Some years back, I watched a show on TV, a crime show, about what they call the linchpin. Now, linchpin is defined as something that holds other things together. A linchpin on the end of an axle holds a wheel on. A person is a linchpin who holds different parts of a process together. Now, in this show, the linchpin was an event that led to a series of events. It was the first domino to fall, knocking over a whole chain of dominoes. Now, it didn't necessarily have to be an insignificant event, but it led to catastrophic results. Far, far bigger than you would have predicted from that initial event. Linchpins can also be positive. And we had a good example of one in today's gospel. A little boy said yes, and he put his small gifts at the service of God's action. This little guy brought his lunch with him. 5 loaves or little biscuits and 2 small fish, probably the size of sardines. He was asked to share his lunch. He could have said, I'm just a kid. I don't matter much. He could have said, I only have enough for myself. He could have looked around at the crowd and said, what's the point? His yes was the linchpin. It led to a crowd of 5,000 being fed. It was one of the signs that revealed who Jesus was. And it led to Jesus saying, I am the bread of life, as we will hear in next week's gospel. We are called to say yes, just like that little boy did. We're called to allow Jesus to work through us. We aren't called to feed the whole crowd by ourselves. We're called to put our gifts into the hands of Jesus. Now, we could use all the same excuses that little boy could have used. We could say, we're pretty insignificant, we don't really matter. We could have said, we don't really have all that much. We could look around and say that the need is so big, what's the point? The little boy said yes. And we are called to say yes as well. We don't know what will result because of our yes. We may never know. We might become the linchpin that leads to something far greater than we can even imagine. But nothing happens without our yes. St. Paul, and we heard in our second reading, is writing to the people from prison. He's encouraging people to live their faith. Basically, he's asking them to lead the kind of life that got him imprisoned. Now, that's likely not going to happen to us, but we might be criticized or rejected. We don't know what impact we might have. But our yes just might be the linchpin for something far bigger.